Hello, and happy Thanksgiving. I wish I had better things to talk to you about today, but I want to update you on what we know so far about the shooting in Washington, D.C. After having some time to reflect on this, I genuinely believe that Donald Trump bears the most responsibility for what happened. If the National Guard had not been deployed to D.C. under what I see as an illegal order, they never would have been put in harm's way. They never would have been turned into targets for unstable individuals looking for someone to attack. When I've said that, people on the right have accused me of using the logic of an abuser, saying it's like, if you hadn't messed up dinner, I wouldn't have hit you. No, that is not the right analogy. The proper analogy is, if you hadn't stolen that car, you never would have gotten into that car accident. It was an illegal action that put people directly in harm's way. If not for that illegality, they wouldn't have been there, period. That's how I want to start this video, because I fully expect Donald Trump to try to blame everyone but himself. But there was no legitimate reason for the National Guard to be there. No real emergency, no real justification. They were picking up trash, and then they were turned into political pawns, and then into targets. Now, calling them targets is particularly apt because the mayor of D.C., whom I trust, has said this was a targeted attack.
What we know, Andrea, is that this is a targeted shooting. One individual who appeared to target these guardsmen, that individual has been taken into custody.
So both the individuals, the guard members, they are in critical condition in a local hospital at this time.
Let me give you some of the updates we have so far. As of this recording, Judge Janine said the suspect lived in Bellingham, Washington, and drove across the country to carry out the attack in D.C. The two victims have been identified as 20-year-old Sarah Beckram and 24-year-old Andrew Wolf. They are members of the West Virginia National Guard and remain in critical condition. If you are someone who prays, please keep them and their families in your prayers. I hope they have a swift and full recovery. They were sent to D.C. as part of President Trump's deployment for what he called a crime emergency, an emergency that does not exist. They were shot at 2:15 while patrolling a busy area near the White House complex. Homeland Security has said that the suspect entered the United States in 2021 under a resettlement program tied to the U.S. military's withdrawal from Afghanistan that year, and I'll have more on that in a bit, because the story here is more complicated than some people want it to be. In the immediate aftermath of the shooting, the government halted processing of all immigration requests for Afghan nationals, because apparently when a person from a minority group commits a crime, that person is treated as representative of the entire group, and the whole group must be punished. But if a straight white man does something equally horrific, it's labeled an isolated incident, and he's just a lone deranged individual. Yet now, all Afghans in the pipeline have to suffer because of one unstable person.
Said this.
I can report tonight that based on the best available information, the Department of Homeland Security is confident that the suspect in custody is a foreigner who entered our country from Afghanistan, a hellhole on earth. He was flown in by the Biden administration in September 2021 on those infamous flights that everybody was talking about. Nobody knew who was coming in. Nobody knew anything about it.
There's a major problem with that framing, and it's something you really need to understand and keep in mind. Something we have to push back on forcefully. The Trump administration itself actually approved this man's asylum. Here's what we know. He came here from Afghanistan in the summer of 2021. He applied for asylum in December of 2024. He then went through another vetting process, and his asylum was approved in April of this year under the Trump administration. Under Donald Trump's administration, his asylum was approved. They allowed him to stay in the country. So when Trump tries to blame this entirely on Biden and on those flights, remember this. His own administration signed off on this man's asylum status. Now, Kash Patel is out there running this whole narrative. He gave a speech this morning, and frankly, You have to wonder whether this guy has any idea what's actually going on.
Enforcement agencies to bring bear all of our resources to make sure we find the perpetrators responsible for this heinous act.
At the time he said that, they had already found the perpetrator. So he's out there talking like they're still hunting for the suspect, when the suspect was already in custody. You can see the disconnect.
Kash.
Director, we're here to brief you on the tragic events that happened today at approximately 2:15 local time in Washington, D.C., where two of our brave members of the National Guard and the Department of War were brazenly attacked in a horrendous act of violence. They were shot. They're in critical condition. As you can see behind me, we have assembled the full force of both the...
This guy is just not up for the job. Now they're also trying to pin this on 6 members of Congress who stated that the military should not follow illegal orders. The implication is that because those members of Congress said that, this shooter decided to open fire on the National Guard.
Well, again, it's pretty sad, but the Democrats only have one playbook. There's one page in that book. If you go back to 2020, they did it with the police. First they vilify, then they dehumanize. 2024, they did it with President Trump. He's a Nazi, dehumanize him. Now, for some reason, in this, last week, we have 6 senators that went on there and vilified and dehumanized our military. If you do that enough, there will be someone who will come out and act out on it.
I've played that clip many times. I'm not going to run it again here, but let me know in the comments if you honestly think what those senators and members of Congress said was dehumanizing the military. It's absolutely absurd to suggest that their criticism of illegal orders somehow caused this shooting. Now, Stephen Miller is clearly seizing on this situation, and that's one of the reasons I'm so upset. The second Stephen Miller and Donald Trump heard what happened in D.C., their first thought was not, "That's terrible. How can we help the families? How can we make sure people are safe?" No. Stephen Miller was practically thrilled, and Trump's immediate instinct was, how can we use this? How can we turn this into more power, more money, more control?
What you heard tonight from President Trump, the breaking news here tonight, is saying that his government is going to accelerate efforts to review every person added to this country over the last 20 years, or the last 4 years, all 20 million. Now, obviously, if you're illegal, you're out automatically. But everybody else who is brought here, refugee, asylum status, whatever status, as he said, if you're not someone who loves this country, if you're not any benefit to this country, then we're going to send you out of this country. Because it's enough already. No one else has to die. No one else has to be murdered. No one else has to be shot.
I just can't get over the fact that it was the Trump administration that allowed this man to stay here. So maybe they should start by being angry at themselves. That's about all we have for now. There are still live updates coming in, but a lot of the information is messy and not completely clear yet. We're also learning that the CIA director says this individual worked with the CIA in Afghanistan. That alone raises a whole set of additional questions about how this was handled, what was known, and when it was known. Here's what I want to end with. I don't know exactly how this happened. I don't know all the details yet. But there are a few possibilities we have to consider. Could it be that Donald Trump shifted resources away from counterterrorism and toward deportations, pulling people away from tracking genuine threats and instead using them to go after immigrants who aren't committing crimes? If that happened, it could have made us less safe because we only have so many personnel and so many hours in the day. If they're focused on removing people who aren't harming anyone, that leaves more room for actual terrorists or violent actors to slip through. Or could it be that the Trump administration had intelligence about this person, knew there was a potential threat, and chose not to act on it because they calculated that if something did happen, it could be politically useful, a way to justify harsher policies and grab more power? I don't know. I can't say that's what happened. But I do think we're going to learn more as time goes on. As the Epstein saga showed us, this kind of thing doesn't stay buried forever. We will get answers. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But the truth has a way of coming out. For now, I want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you have a great day with your family or with friends if you're spending it that way. And if you're alone, you're not really alone. You're here with me, and I appreciate you. Happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you soon.